All right, folks, we are live. We were hoping to go live in a much better circumstance where the Yankees were going up 3-0 after making a feverish comeback to essentially go up against one of the greatest closers to ever, pitch in this sport and jump on him and take the lead. And to come away with a loss here, there's not going to be much of an intro because that's the intro. I have no words, really. I do have a lot of words, and we're going to talk about it. But, Gary, you had said off air, this is the worst loss in 22 years. And I feel that because you have the broadcast saying, oh, this is one of the all-time postseason games. And, of course, it didn't go, in favor of, it didn't go in favor of the Yankees. So it's one of the all-time postseason games. And, lo and behold, it goes up against the Yankees because that's normally how that stuff works. Dave Roberts, the 3-0 comeback by the Red Sox. We're used to this. I understand there are a lot of Yankee fans who are trying to figure out, how do you feel about this and everything? I feel like I got kicked in the nuts. Yeah. I'm going to say this, and then I'm going to pass it to you. They're not about to blow this series just because of this loss, but this loss can lead to something like that. And I think it's important for people to realize that it's not just a game. When you start factoring in the way this stuff is done, see, had the Guardians just won this game, 3-1, like it looked like they were going to, I think it's a completely different thing going into game 4. I think the Yankees come out normal. Now you have to wonder because the momentum is leaning back in the Guardians' favor. It's how the game ended. And it just sucks. I hate to jump on Clay Holmes. He literally set a record for the most scoreless innings in Yankee history pitched in the postseason. But, he gives that up. And to be honest with you, Luke Weaver blew the game. And, Luke Weaver's been outstanding, but, he shouldn't be just completely, I guess, just not allowed to be criticized, right? He right. has to be a part of it. So, yeah, this is just a really frustrating game. We're going to get into it, folks. If you guys want to drop super chats and what have you, we'll feature those and we'll, answer your questions and what have you. But yeah, it's a frustrating game, and we're going to get to the bottom of it and talk about game 4 as well.
Okay, so this is the first time, and I know people probably think I've been mad before. Mm-hmm. This is absolutely the first time I've ever been pissed off as a Yankees fan. And I'll tell you why. Because a lot of times when you say, oh, a manager made a mistake, and that mistake cost us a game today, I think a lot of those mistakes, they are much more noticeable. They are talked about much more. But Aaron Boone made a critical mistake in game 2 that cost us this game. And that was using Luke Weaver at all in game 2. I've actually talked about this. It's the reason I mentioned it. And I laid off the gas pedal because we didn't want to be overly critical of Aaron Boone in a win. Okay. When you take care of home field, everyone should, in theory, be happy. There's no question about that. There shouldn't be a remix to it. But there are certain things that can drift off into game 3, and we almost snuck away, and I want to make sure that word is clear. We snuck away almost with this game, okay? We had 6 hits. I don't know if that was clear in today's ball game. 6 base hits, okay? The Yankees winning this game would have been highway robbery. But given the situation we ended up in, Luke Weaver was gassed very clearly. And actually, it appeared in the 8th inning. If you looked at his fastball, it was 93, 94. It actually reminded me a lot of Joe Madden. Do you remember in 2016 when they actually went and broke their curse? Aroldis Chapman pitched in a game. They were up 3 or 4. And yet, he left them out there. And his explanation after the game was, well, we want to make sure that we win this game. That was our mentality. We're not worried about tomorrow's game. We're not worried about a game 6. We're not worried about a game 7. And long and behold, the slowest pitch Aroldis Chapman threw the whole season, want to make sure I get this right, and we're not guessing, was the 2-2 fastball he threw to Rajai Davis in the bottom half of the 8th inning that was hit for a 2-run home run. These situations matter. They're never talked about. Anytime you win a game, people usually walk away and say, well, we won that. And then you get to show up to the next game fresh. No, you don't. You don't get to show up fresh. The utilization of bullpen should matter. It's always mattered. For the fans of the Yankees, they should understand it more than anyone. The more you use a guy in the bullpen, the more the chances increase that he's going to make a mistake. He went with a changeup on a pitch very clearly. Have never heard of this guy. Never. Okay. I'm not even going to pretend I do. Jahonsky Noel. They called him Big Christmas on Twitter.
What is that? Do you know?
No. Let me just tell you guys, just so you understand exactly what happened tonight. This player, and he's no chopped liver, okay? He obviously is in the big leagues. He does a certain job, clearly is light tower power. He has 13 home runs. So you'd say, oh, wow, they must be this. Okay, he has 13 home runs and 179 at-bats in his career. He's hitting 218. In the postseason, he's taken 16 at-bats. He had 2 hits. If you go home because you couldn't solidify a game 3 on the road because you gave up a home run to a 23-year-old rookie that's done nothing in Major League Baseball, you deserve to lose. You've made mistakes. We made a mistake with Weaver. We made a mistake, some people think, with Holmes, right? There are many mistakes that happened today. First base, we looked like hockey goalies at first base today. Nobody could field the ball. Nobody. It actually didn't matter. People were saying, what's Rizzo? Why is he not over there? Why is Birdie there? Wait, Birdie's our best glove over there. Nobody could field the ball. The only person we haven't tried yet is Cabrera. No one wants to make a play. And when it actually matters most, which was the very end of this game, and you give up a bomb to 2 players, David Fry, you deserve to lose. Tip your cap to players that stepped up in a huge moment. We didn't come to play. For whatever reason, we essentially put guys in position that, in my opinion, wasn't to succeed. And they went out and just farted down their leg. The biggest game that we've had in 23 years. Because I don't want to shortchange this. This is the worst loss in 23 years. That walk-off to Arizona in Game 7, absolutely worse. Given the situation, it was worse. This was the worst loss since that moment. Terrible. Saw it in the chat. The 2004 championship series against Boston. Oh, yeah, if you lose in Game 4 that way. No, we tip our cap. They rose to the occasion. And also, we lost to some great players. I can accept losing to all-time great players I'm going to tell my kids about. But when you're losing to players that a lot of us had no idea who they were, some of us did, some of us didn't, that's frustrating. It just is.
Naylor, Manzardo, Schneeman, like what? Fry,
it is baseball to
Rocchio.
Be clear. You don't always have to have heard of a player for him to make an impact. Very clearly.
We always bring up Marco Scutaro as an example. So I totally understand that. It's incredibly frustrating because you have that 8th inning against Clase, Stanton, and Judge. And it's like, this is how it's almost worse to do what the Yankees did today and get back in the game and then take the lead and then blow it. But I'll say this. There are 2 things I'm going to say. One is negative and one is positive. The positive one is, this is just out of the old L Dad playbook. This is the type of thing that he would say. All right. Well, the ALCS Game 3 in 2009, they lost in extra innings. So we know how that ended. That's exactly what my dad would say. Now, the negative tone here, Gary, I'm just being realist. I'm not saying that the Yankees are going to lose the series, but let's just be like objective here for a second. Just be entirely objective. No horse in the race.
Yeah.
Forget about the lack of names, all that. Here's the reality. The Yankees continue to send out Tim Hill. They continue to send out Tommy Kahnle, Luke Weaver, Clay Holmes, the circle of trust, right?
Okay.
Ian Hamilton went down with an injury today. We don't know what his status is going to be. You can say that might open up the door for an emergency add onto the roster. That's certainly possible. But that would be probably Mark Leiter Jr., if we're being honest with you.
Oh, but please.
So,
if Mark Leiter Jr. pitches in this series at any point, go ahead.
But you get my point, though, where I'm going with this. And it kind of adds on to what you're saying. because these guys already were used in game 2 and now you lost this game and now you have an injury in your bullpen that isn't as depth filled as maybe that you would hope, well, you're going into game 4 needing, whether it's fair or not, Luis Gil needs to come out and have the game of his life, because I don't think that game can be close, Gary. I don't know if they're equipped to fend off a 9th inning rally again. I just don't think they are.
Well,
and
who's closing that game? I need one clear answer of who would you go to close game 4? If we were up 2 in a game, up 1 in a game, going bottom 9, 1, 2, 3's up for Cleveland, who is closing? Because Weaver is clearly, at this point, he is not pitching game 4. We've got 3 games in a row. He's pitched 3 games in a row. Who are you going to?
You might be surprised by this, but I'm actually going to get creative here, and I'm going to go with one of the starters. I'm going to say pitch an inning for me. Just get an inning. I might put in Rodon. Okay. I'm serious, because I don't think you can't go with Stroman. You can't.
Well, yeah.
But I think asking Rodon to pitch an inning, I think you could do that. Do you agree? It's different. I know it kind of takes him a little bit out of his, No,
trust me. I'm not biting back on it. Mm-hmm. I'm not sure what I would do, but I like the concept that we don't care who's pitching the 9th inning. We just know it can't be Weaver. And at this point, it's not going to be Holmes. That's a confidence thing. I just don't want Holmes anywhere near the mound to close the game. Okay.
No, because he hasn't been in this position, right? He hasn't been in this position to this point. And now, he goes into this situation. It's like, he's been really good in his 5th inning and his 6th inning and his sporadic roles, but this was like being a closer again. And I do think it just goes to show you that he's not on that plane. You can say what you will. He's been great in his role, but then when you expand his role there, I see Tim Hill in the comment section. My issue with Tim Hill is the guy's pitching every day too. He's pitched every single game. So, that's the reality, is that the Yankees have kind of backed themselves up into a corner here. I think the interesting thing is going to be, who do they replace? Because Ian Hamilton is not going to be okay. Okay. Not for the rest of this
fell
series.
Off of a mount. Yeah, it's not going to happen. Can I use, by the way, something in the chat? Because I think it needs to be used. Mm-hmm. Okay. This is the format. It is 2-3-2. Okay. Just so people understand, we are playing 2 games at Yankee Stadium, obviously been played. We won both.
Yeah.
We despicably lost this game, right? It sucks. But now that you go into game 4, let's remember something. If we lose game 4, the pressure of the world is on us at that point, because we came into game 3. Everyone said, well, hold on a second. Technically, the Yankees just took care of home field. The series doesn't start till the home team loses. And that is technically true. At some point or another, if Cleveland takes care of home field, and so far they have now, we are going to have to go back to Yankee Stadium and win a game 6, or worst comes to worst, a game 7. We do not want to be in that situation. So
no,
I understand the way that this looks from the outside looking in. Oh, we've got 7 games with this team, so we can go win it at any point in that 7-game series. The longer this series goes, the more you drag it, the more pressure we're going to feel. If you guys don't think there's pressure on this team, there's more pressure on us than any other organization. It is not close. We have not won in 14 years. So everyone can talk about this loss was worse or that loss was worse. No, we have a spent bullpen, and we just lost game 3. So we're going into game 4 with a pitcher who's a rookie. Luis Gil is a rookie. Mm-hmm. So he's going into a postseason game. If he's not lights out, or if this game's close, it is disadvantage for the Yankees. That's a problem, which tells me the offense is the key to game 4. They have to come out and slug early. If not, we're in for a long night.
I agree. And it's about time. I'm watching. How many of those games did you see in the playoffs? You got Ohtani and Betts, and I understand Judge and Stanton both hit home runs, and You know, Stanton's been huge and Soto's been huge and Glaber's been huge. But, you know, it's time for guys like Wells, Chisholm. Basically, like, unfortunately, I hate to break it to you, and I was hoping I would be wrong here, but Trevino's base hit today that you know brought in that first run, he should have had 2, if not for that awful base running gaff, which you could say not one play loses or wins you the game necessarily. There are a lot of plays that go in between that. That base running gaff costs it. So, you know, then there's a liner. I think I forget if it was Verdugo or who it was, but it's a liner. And
Verdugo.
Yeah. And so that's a sack fly if, you know, Trevino doesn't get thrown out. So I don't know what the base running thing is, but that's not going to be something that they can fix in 2024. That's a 2025 thing. This is who they are. They're not going to just magically be better base running. They're just not. They're careless on the base paths. Does not matter who it is. So the problem here is that you have a banged up bullpen, because here are the guys, Gary. This is what's left here. The pitchers, all the pitchers on this roster. You got Garrett Cole. You got Jake Cousins. I like Jake Cousins, but here's my issue with Jake Cousins here. He came off the injury and has barely pitched since. They have not used him. So is he healthy? Is he on there as an emergency? Well, this is an emergency. So I don't know what you do there. Luis Heel, he's going to be starting. Hamilton is gone, so you're going to be replacing him, and I'll get to that in a sec. Tim Hill's pitching every single night, and he's pitching, 1 1/3, 1 2/3, 2 innings. So he's probably not available. Clay Holmes, like you just said, you don't want him in that role. I don't either. Tommy Kahnle's pitching every night, so he's probably not available. Tim Meza, you definitely don't want pitching there. Then you have Carlos Rodon, who I suggested maybe you bring him in for the 9th. That would be a huge moment for him if he could get a huge save. Clark Schmidt, he just pitched, so he's out of it. Marcus Stroman, no. And then Luke Weaver, you could throw. I would not be surprised, just because of how backed into a corner they are, that they feel like they have to throw Luke Weaver again tomorrow. I don't think they're going to do it, but I wouldn't be shocked. And so that's why I think you're in a position where you've really, unfortunately, it happens so fast, almost in a blink of an eye, but you're in a bad spot bullpen wise. And so I think really this is where you have to look at getting creative. Jake Cousins, maybe, but he hasn't pitched. Rodon, and then whoever. And I'm going to bring up whoever right now. So 40-man roster. These are the options. And I want to get your thoughts on this. You got Clayton Beeter. If Nestor Cortez, this is the wild card here. If Nestor Cortez is ready to go, he could actually take Ian Hamilton's spot. So this, I don't mean I really like Ian Hamilton. This could almost be a blessing in disguise. Like if Nestor Cortez, they were trying to save him. Now they're backed into a corner. Nestor Cortez would be my guy. I would 100% be rolling with him to pitch the back half of the game. And so you'd have Nestor Cortez, you'd have Clayton Beeter, you'd have Scott Efros, you'd have Yuendris Gomez, you would have Mark Leiter Jr., absolutely not, Cody Poteet, and Will Warren. That's it. Those are your options.
Okay, well, they told us. Let's go based on what they told us. They said a week and a half ago, and that doesn't mean this is set in stone. But they said their projection was that Nestor Cortez would be ready late in the championship series because he was in the rev up process to the point where they didn't put him on the postseason roster for the championship series. So if he is the replacement, we essentially would be able to use him in an emergency. And again, as these games go on, they are just one game, but momentum is a thing. Pressure is a thing. This is the reason that we went 14 years. We have a lot of pressure on us. We do. And the Yankees winning game 1 was humongous. What Carlos Rodon did for this team, I cannot even overstate it.
He's the MVP of the series just for that.
I cannot let you guys know what would have happened if we had lost game 1. So Carlos Rodon delivers. Okay. Garrett Cole wasn't his usual sharp self, but he shows up and we win the game anyways. Sigh of relief, right? The Yankees feel like we took care of home field, and at the very least, we get to come back here to Yankee Stadium and we don't have to sweat going on the road and making sure we have to go steal multiple games in Cleveland. So now we show up to Cleveland and we thought, oh, okay, the offense is just a complete no show at all, right? Weaver probably shouldn't have been used in game 2, But now you're thinking, well, the Yankees, I wonder how they're going to go about game 3, how they're going to go about finding a win and closing down these games. Who do they really trust? And we got our answer. They trust the same guys over and over and over again. They're not touching anybody else. Weaver is pitching every day. Canley's pitching every single day.
Yeah.
Tim Hill is pitching every single day. That's their game plan. We are going to put the pedal to the metal, and we're just going to have to make sure we do win these games when we take our punch. And they didn't. So now what happens next? We don't show up to game 4 at full strength. I'm going to be clear here. This is not negative. Luis Gil has all the pressure in the world on him. He needs to deliver. That is exactly what I'm talking about. This is not This is not being negative. When you have a guy who is as good as Luis Gil was in the first half of the year, essentially until like 2 weeks before the break, he was spectacular. He's been spectacular since. They gave him the entire division series off. We have all the excuses we can give for him for not being sharp. He hasn't pitched. But we can say he'll be fresh. He needs to use some of these tools to his advantage and dominate game 4. It just has to happen. Some of those names you saw, Jose Ramirez, I get it. Great player in this league, right? Quan, great player in this league. Hasn't been great in this series. You need to control the rest of the guys in this game. He needs to dominate. And our offense, what you saw at a Jazz Chisholm, Birdie, Rizzo today, I thought Volpe's at-bats were tremendous. We need more of it in game 4. Verdugo, right? A lot of these guys, Austin Wells, in my opinion, now that we get to this segment, it's so interesting where we are at catcher, because the conversation is that Austin Wells is an automatic out right now. He's an out, okay? And if he doesn't play, Jose Trevino is a much better at-bat. You saw early in this game, and yet Jose Trevino can't catch for this team in important games. The floodgates are open. If you take Wells off the field, oh my God, we can't stop the running game. If you put Wells on the field, oh my goodness, we can't hit. So guess what, guys? The rest of the players have to hit. You've got to pick them up. That's the situation we're in. If our back's against the wall, and if losing game 4 means losing all momentum in the series, then don't lose game 4. Go hit. That's the positive spin I'm going to bring to this episode. Go hit. In a game where everyone thinks, oh, you just lost all momentum, everyone's freaking out, running around like chickens with their heads cut off, go out there and hit some bombs. Go find some gaps. Run the bases like you guys actually are coached by somebody of competence. Do it. And then after that, we can exhale again the way we did after game 1. That is postseason baseball. It is stressful. It is roller coaster, unless you're the Dodgers, of course, who are taking care of business right now. It is tough business winning in October. We know it better than anybody else, but we've got to find a way to win game 4. It is crucial we take care of business.
So, what's funny, again, in the same vein as what my dad would say, game 4 in the ALCS in 2009, the Yankees came out on the road against the Angels. They won 10-1. They need a game like that. That's what they need. If they get something like where an offense explodes, CC Sabathia started that game against Scott Kazmir. If they get off to a great start, I know. If they get off to a great start and you have, Luis Gil just doing his job, Luis Gil doesn't have to be amazing at that point. If you're, putting up 10 runs, and obviously you're not going to put up 10 runs every game, right?
Right.
But they are due. They're due for that. Just kind of the same way when I texted you, I hate to say this, but Clay Holmes is totally due to give up a run. Like, I knew it. We all
whenever
knew it.
You say it always works out in the negative, but whenever you say a player's due offensively, they never do anything. Never.
Nope, never. But I will say this. It sucks, but Wells has to be the priority over Trevino, because Wells is costing you runs at the plate, yes. Trevino, it has no chance of throwing anybody out from, like, they ran multiple times. They had 3 stolen bases today. 3. And Trevino was caught stealing too. So
was that all it was? Because they felt like Trevino, he tried to throw a ball away. It felt like 3 times. They were all poor throws, every single one of them. And every time I Every time I see someone steal, if Austin Wells is catching, I think, oh man, is he going to throw this guy out? Oh, he didn't? Okay, well, at least that play was close. Whenever I see someone stealing off of Jose Trevino, I think, oh, okay, well, he's going to be safe, but just don't throw it away. Don't let him go to the next base. That's my mentality. And I mean, that's pretty low hopes, right? I mean, that's not good.
Yeah, I just figured you'd love that. So
Jason, you're banned.
If they go with Will Warren, I will have a heart attack. Can you imagine seeing that guy come in? No, they won't go with him. I do think the chat earlier, there were people saying Cousins. It probably is going to be Cousins because I did forget. You could have Rodon go an inning if he wasn't going to pitch game 5, which he's probably going to pitch game 5. So
likely
that kind of throws that out. But I mean, at some point or another, they're going to pitch Stroman. He's not just on the roster to look, a big name. That looks cool. No, like he's going to pitch, and he probably pitches tomorrow. And
I don't think he pitches. I don't think there's any way he pitches. No way.
Oh, I do. I mean, I think it's going to come down to this. I think if Heel can give the Yankees 5 innings, and the Yankees can at least give him 4 runs. Okay. Stroman is going to come in, pitch 3 innings, right? He's going to give up maybe a run or 2, right? I think Heel maybe gives up 1 run. I think the Yankees, at that point, they're probably up like 4-3. Not the most ideal spot. And then I think, I'm telling you right now, I really believe that and I could be wrong, but I think the next guy to replace Ian Hamilton, because this is coming, we'll see this tomorrow morning, right? It's going to be, I'm telling you 100%, and again, could be wrong, it's going to be Cortez. It's going to. And I think Cortez is going to pitch the 8th and 9th. That's how I feel. I think we're going to see Heel, Stroman, and Cortez. And that's the type of, because that is them essentially being like, hey, we'd love to have Weaver. We'd love to have Holmes in the 5th like we've been doing. We'd love to be able to use Kane Lee and Hill. But you have to, this is where baseball becomes wicked strategic. This is why you had that, vote, game where you had mentioned in game 2 where, he pulls him. And that was strategy. That was strategy. They decided to go with the bullpen game approach, right?
Yeah.
I think that's kind of what we're going to see.
So Nestor Cortez being a part of this, because when he was left off the championship roster, a lot of people felt like, okay, well, if he's only going to be ready for 1 start, we should probably use that roster spot for somebody else. But now that we have an injury, okay, now how do you rebound from that? Okay,
that's how I see it.
We put him on the roster, and now you can use him in case of an emergency. Get Carlos Rodon back on schedule to start the game he's supposed to be pitching, right? You don't want to panic because you lost 1 game and then throw everything essentially off the rails. You need to, at some point, have some level of confidence in Luis Gil, to which I do. But I want to make sure that the pressure in tomorrow's game is on this offense, right? Is on the complementary players. Aaron Judge did what he was supposed to do today. You had a home run against Emmanuel Clase. There is nothing else, right? And some people have talked about, I didn't feel like we should have won this game. Well, so what? Once you get into the 9th inning and you're up 2 with your closer out there, those games are supposed to be won. So I don't care how you got there. I don't care if you were no hit all day long and you just so happen to walk 3 guys in a row and then a dude makes an error. You end up winning the game 2-0. You win the game. You have to find a way to finish when you get there. And that's something we didn't do. And we've mentioned why that happened. It's unfortunate, but where do we go from here? And I agree with the idea of what you're saying with Marcus Stroman. I understand it, and I'm not saying you're wrong, but I personally wouldn't do it. The only way I would deploy that is given that the offense allows me to put a player on the field I expect to give up runs that can burn innings. If you're going to go out there, I have to treat a postseason baseball game like you're going to shut it down this inning. That's why I'm putting you out there, not to manage the game. So that's where I'm at. I agree with what you're saying of the premise to burn innings, but that's only predicated on if the offense can do their job. If they don't early, to which today they didn't at all, well, I have a hard time putting Marcus Stroman on the mound, who the last time he pitched gave up 13 hits while we were there. So it's
I
a
know
lot.
it's not necessarily something I'm like, let's go, but they don't really have many options. And I think they have to be thinking in the moment and ahead as well. It's hard. It's a hard thing to do. It's a hard concept. We're not talking about ahead to the World Series. That's not what we're talking about. Although, if you want to get into that, getting Cortez these little, moments where he gets 2 innings here and, maybe gets another game where he gets 2 innings, that gets him kind of a little revved up for the World Series, does it not? But you have to get there.
Should help.
You have to get there. And we're not talking about the World Series right now. Let's make that very clear. If they were up 3-0, I'd be okay if people wanted to talk a little bit about the World Series. I would. But after losing this game, I don't give a rip what's going on in Flushing. I don't care. I'm not looking at the score. I don't give a rippity doodah, as Gary would say, about I love that, about the Dodgers or the Mets right now. I don't. And no one should. No Yankee fan should care about those games, because guess what? You might not see them. If this goes south, you might not be watching the World Series. So let's make that very clear. Do not get too far ahead, especially after a loss. So right now, it's gut check time. And I'll give you this. Gavin Williams is confirmed for tomorrow. So Gavin Williams, with his 4.88 ERA on the season, is confirmed to go up against Luis Gil. Gavin Williams saw the Yankees once at the stadium. In that game, both Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton homered. They won 6-0. I think we're going to get something like that tomorrow. I think they are long overdue. I think they are absolutely ready to have an offensive explosion. They had a couple of those this year against the Guardians. They had an 8-1 game back in August, and they had an 8-2 game in April, and they had a 6-0 game like I'm talking about as well in August. So they've had, and remember, we talked about it, they lost in this same ballpark. They lost in 10 innings. Remember I mentioned that? They lost 8-7 in a game. They dominated that game. So this game, if you want to take anything away that maybe could be considered good, is that the Yankees didn't deserve to win this at any point. When they had those 2 home runs, that's big, but that's why we're looking at this game the way we are. The Yankees got outplayed. Truthfully, they got outplayed. They could not hit Boyd. Boyd had a 2-hitter in this game. They took him out with 75 pitches. They didn't even have to do that. They couldn't hit Boyd. But do you know what happened? Gary, as soon as Trevino was called out and was caught stealing.
Yep.
As soon as that happened, they had like 10 straight guys that were
it might have been more than that. We couldn't hit to save our lives.
Yeah.
And it was a huge surprise for all of us to see those 2 home runs. It was bad. So once that happened, I mean, it's like watching a football game and getting dominated all 4 quarters, and somehow, some way you look up and say, oh, wow, we're winning, and then losing on clock management at the end of the game. It's like, technically, you should be pissed off. You don't understand the fundamentals of the game and you blew a game. You probably shouldn't have lost there at the end. But yeah, I understand why people feel like, hey, we probably should have lost this game anyway. Take it that way. You go into game 4, you've got to hit Gavin Williams.
There's no excuse.
Now, people are going to hear that and say, well, Gavin Williams is a professional. He's a good player. You have to beat Gavin Williams to go to the World Series, or to take absolute control of a series to go to the World Series, and you couldn't do that. Well, at some point or another, you can't even get upset, right? At some point, you have to say, okay, we don't deserve to go where we want to go if we don't do what we need to do. Losing this game, it's all right? It's not the end of the world. It is 2-1 Yankees. We took care of home field. We still have home field. But we essentially, by taking this game today, would have alleviated all the pressure and punted it into the World Series. But now you put yourself in a position where you still have a test to pass. And I'm looking forward to seeing them pass this test because they're going to pass it with their offense. They're going to show up and say, you're Gavin Williams and I'm Aaron Judge. You're Gavin Williams. I'm Juan Soto. Okay. Put pressure on the players we're supposed to be putting pressure on. And all those complimentary players you saw make an impact today, like Anthony Volpe, we need 2 or 3 guys to step up tomorrow. We have to have it. And one last thing, Jake, I had to mention. I absolutely love the format here of forcing teams to play back-to-back-to-backs in these games. And I'll tell you why. It sets us up. It is actually an advantage for the Yankees at some point or another because Cleveland, who has a dominant bullpen, not so much their starting rotation. You obviously saw it, right, with Bybee and their ace. Not an overly overpowering, right, starting pitching. But if a team has dominant bullpen play, they can just come out and wipe you away with days off in between. It really can just be a huge equalizer in a series. Cleveland's going to have to get Gavin Williams is going to have to go, honestly, some length in this game. He's going to have to pitch well. If he doesn't, Cleveland, remember, they threw Clase today. He got punched in the mouth. So some of their guys are burnt too. They've been using some bullpen guys, some really good arms. So the way I look at this is the Yankees can out-hit this problem, and they can make it go away very quickly as soon as tomorrow night.
No, I absolutely agree with you. No one's been announced for Saturday, Monday, or Tuesday, obviously. The hope, I mean, this is the hope, is that they take care of business on Friday with Heel.
Right.
And then at the very least, I mean, well, let's just say this. You win the game with Heel. You're up 3-1. Are you pitching Cole to put it away on Saturday in Cleveland? I don't think it's as simple as a yes answer. I don't.
Let me think about that. Do I pitch? So I've told you this before. I always go with my best option as long as they're ready. Mm-hmm. And if my back's against the wall, now I have to go with the best player available, maybe move that player up. Garrett Cole, as long as he's on time and ready to pitch, I pitch him. Okay. I don't say, hey, we've got a game 6, we've got a game 7 to work with because we've been there before. You don't want to play that way. It's obvious, it's bad karma. Just put your best players available, and you never know which of these assets on our team are going to basically have their last game played with us. And what I mean by that is a player can go down with an injury at any point in a series. They can just get hurt. This is sports. Okay. This is not just a baseball thing. This is a football thing. This is a basketball thing. If you play an extra game, something can happen. Take care of business as soon as possible, but it starts with game 4. You've got to go out and hit. I think it's very clear if the Yankees don't hit in game 4, all the pressure of the world is going to be on us. And everyone talking about what we did with a 2-0 lead and what we did against an inferior Cleveland team with a payroll of X, right? You need to put that stuff to bed by doing what you're supposed to be doing and taking care of business. A Mets team's playing the Dodgers across the way. And I know you said you didn't care about it, but guess what, guys? They're looking at it and saying everyone had expectations for the Dodgers to take care of this series. And they say, okay, right? Now you look at the inverse of that. The Dodgers say, oh, the hot Mets team, everyone has the Cinderella story. Shohei can't pitch. They've got no pitching. They just show up and slug. They did it last night. Just show up and slug. Sometimes, guys, there's nothing wrong with being an offense that can go out and be a juggernaut. There's nothing wrong with saying, hey, let's just go out, hit our problems. Because it sounds like a very MLB The Show type approach. Just go hit home runs. Just go score. It sounds very childlike. But you have to remember, that is the game of baseball. You can go out there and torch a team with your offense. That's part of the reason why we put Soto and Judge in the same lineup with Stanton there as well. They've got to go out and do their jobs. If they do, this won't be a problem at all, right? We will forget about this game, as crazy as this game was, if we take care of business tomorrow. But obviously, if we don't, then we've got to get more creative and strict with who we deploy.
I agree. Something tells me that the Yankees did get everything Cleveland had tonight. Like, truthfully, I'm not seeing this as like a Red Sox 3-0 comeback. Like,
no,
I really don't because I understand they were up 2-0 and it's not 3, but you needed everything to go your way in the last 2 innings of the game in order to get your first win. Now, keep this in mind. Next time any Mets fan or Dodgers fan wants to say that the Yankees have this Mickey Mouse, run. Because I'll tell you right now, it is an easier thing. We've talked about this. This isn't the easiest road the Yankees have had.
By far.
But that doesn't mean that the Yankees aren't playing the second best team in the AL. Doesn't mean they're not playing a team that was 50-30 at home. Just as good, by the way, as the Yankees were on the road. And it doesn't mean that they're not playing a team that won 2 fewer games than the Yankees. I think really, they're frustrating because they have a lot of these guys. Like they have, Bo Naylor and Rocchio and Schneeman and all just these random Twitter users, like people would say, right? Manzardo, Dustin Fry. Actually, I think it's David Fry. Dustin Fry, I think, was an offensive tackle for the Browns.
Hey, where's Wells hitting in the lineup, by the way, tomorrow? It actually just hit me because I'm assuming. Well, do you think he starts tomorrow? I mean, my assumption is he was going to.
Well, so I think as much as they like the lefty, righty, all that, I think Boone, watching Stanton and Judge hit back-to-back, I just don't. There's no way he's going to go away from Stanton. I don't think you can.
Oh, I agree with that.
So I think Wells would probably hit 5th. I do. Because then you'd have a lefty, then Birdie back righty, lefty Rizzo. Then you have lefty Rizzo. Yeah, I guess you could kind of mix that up. But I think Wells is probably going to hit 5th.
This reminds me of Castellanos last year. Do you remember how ice cold he was in the playoffs?
Wells is going to have a big moment. He's going to.
You think so? I do not see that. I have no. Obviously, he's taking these at bats, and he can. It's baseball. No one has a clue. Yeah. We just gave up 2 home runs to players that we have never heard of. So obviously, we've seen crazier things, but there's nothing Austin Wells is showing me that would make me predict that something good is going to happen from this point to the end of this series. I hope I'm not even going to say I'm wrong. There's just nothing objectively he's shown me. He's done nothing.
Yeah. Well, it's funny. David Fry hit the game-winning home run. Learn his name. If they win the series, I'll care.
I said David Fry earlier today, so I appreciate you joining us, whoever that is.
Yeah.
Kidding me.
I know. I was making a joke because Dustin Fry was an offensive tackle for the Browns. So also Cleveland.
Yeah.
And then I said David Fry, but
Yeah, well, he didn't hear that. He heard what he wanted to hear. So
everyone's a critic. Yeah, I'll be honest. I do feel good that the Yankees are going to win this series. I really do. I'm not panicking. The way I want to approach this show is that I want to inform and I want to educate. And I feel like we do that. You kind of take a step back. Okay, I believe this, but what if this, and this happens? And so I feel like that's where we're at. We're hashing over the fact that, look, this is a bullpen that you could say is now a little depleted, but they have a weird wild card here because Ian Hamilton goes down. And now I hate using that as an opportunity, but you get what I'm saying is now you can bring in Cortez. And it's like, that makes the Yankees so much better if they can get any bit of what Cortez was before he got hurt. And I totally agree with you because Cortez was only going to start 1 game. And I think that's honestly why they didn't. I think they were confident they were going to win this series, didn't want to rush him back. But now looking at your bullpen, seeing the guys and everything, I think that makes sense. I think when we talk about the lineup, I think it's going to stay pretty much the same, except I think Rizzo gets the start over Birdie. I do.
Oh, you do?
I 100% do. Rizzo's hitting 429.
What happened to Cabrera?
Well, remember my issue when Birdie played over Cabrera and I made a big deal about it. And you're like, yeah, they're both kind of 1A and 1B, right? This was my issue is that he's going to get lost in translation. And he has. But I'm not saying I wouldn't play Cabrera. I'm saying they're going to play Rizzo because what you just said earlier, and what I agree with you, is that they need to have an offensive game. They need to swing the bat. They need to protect they need to actually protect their rookie pitcher, right? I'm not talking about pulling him after 3 innings. The weird thing about this is that they don't have the luxury to even pull him in a normal situation. If he continues to pitch well, normally, you see the way some of these guys are pitching, like the way they took out whoever pitched today. I'm totally blanking on his name. Boyd, Matthew Boyd. They take him out with 75 pitches. He could have kept going. He was pitching very well, but they had that ability because, they've been using their bullpen, but they had a day off. Well, now that day off is come and gone. So you have back to back to back, So I do think Luis Gil's going to have to go 5 at least, maybe 6. And the offense, and this is where it also gets interesting, Gary, because if the offense is good enough, I keep Luis Gil in there until he really starts to struggle.
He should be able, in theory, he should be able to go length. You didn't pitch a single offering in the division series. They chose for that to happen. Everyone talked about overusing him, right?
Yeah.
What are we going to do when he gets up to 175 innings? What are we going to do if he gets up to 200 innings? What are we going to do in a deep postseason run? This is a rookie. He's never done anything like this. Well, how about sitting the entire division series? How about that? Well, you can't tell me, this guy's gassed 4 2/3 innings, and now we need to look at Marcus Stroman. If Marcus Stroman is a pitcher that the Yankees feel like, okay, this is an advantage for us, taking Luis Gil off the mound and putting Marcus Stroman out there, something has gone wrong severely. Okay.
Yeah.
In my estimation, Luis Gil is a good enough pitcher. I absolutely trust him to the degree that I would leave him out there. I just would.
I would.
And the
too.
Yankees, if you're in a 1-0 situation or 0-0 situation, you've got to play it by ear in the 5th or 6th inning. It doesn't really allow your pitcher to have the leash that you would want. But I've told you guys before, when it came to Rodon and a lot of those guys who pitched, you see it. If a game's close, sometimes the situation will pull you and not necessarily your performance. So if the offense takes care of business, obviously Luis Gil has to be good, not spectacular. He doesn't need to go out and be Kurt Schilling. But go out, if you give us 5 and surrender 2, or maybe even 1, I would consider that already a great start in itself. You give up 1 run and 5 innings of work. Now we, at this point, can say, okay, this guy's fresh. See if you can extend that. Play it by ear. Get as many outs as possible because we need it. We just do. We don't know how we're closing tomorrow's game. No one's got a clue, right? You just mentioned we might bring in a starter. We don't know who's starting at first base. There are a ton of question marks with this team. And I remember telling you that Rizzo is mentally a step up defensively. But, I mean, how would you describe that play over at first base today? I mean, it was so slow and lethargic. It was, and I don't want to overblow it. It was.
You're not overblowing it, though, because we watched Cabrera play that position, and he's the exact opposite. And that's the problem, is that now Rizzo hitting 429 and having an OPS over 1,000. Boone is like, well, he honestly should have played today, probably with those numbers, but Boone is probably going to play him. And now Cabrera kind of gets left out in the cold. And this is what I was like worried about, is because Cabrera is one of the best 9 hitters on this team without a shadow of a doubt. And Cabrera's had home runs in the playoffs before. He's come up in spots. So
some big moments.
I think it's hard because, again, he's hitting 429. But I think I might even, if I'm going with what I think they're going to do, it's going to be Rizzo. If I'm going with what I would do, I would actually start Cabrera tomorrow. I think he's ready to go. He's chomping at the bit. It has to suck. He can't even come in and pinch run. They pinch ran Jason Dominguez today over him. So it's like they've completely forgotten Cabrera's on the roster. So, and also maybe, Gary, in the same vein, he didn't pinch run for that reason. Maybe they're saving him for tomorrow. Who knows? But yeah, I think Cabrera needs to play. It's not as simple as putting him in left field, because I think Verdugo's had a good postseason. I do. I like what I've seen from him in left field. I think he's had some good at bats. He's hitting 250. Like, his OPS isn't great. He's not a slugger, whatever. But
I've got my answer.
Hit it.
The starting first baseman tomorrow has to be Anthony Rizzo, and I'll tell you why.
Okay.
So we've already mentioned. So I brought up Cabrera, so it cannot be overstated. I don't hate Cabrera. It's not that I think Cabrera is not as good of a player. I actually think if he played right away in this postseason at first base, that this would be a much more clear answer of who we should be going with. But as far as I'm concerned, Rizzo is swinging a hot bat. He is performing. I understand that the defense is to be desired. It has not been good, but I'll tell you this, tomorrow is not about defense. Essentially what we're saying is you're hoping, just like Gleyber Torres this entire baseball season, you hope that his defensive mistake doesn't cost you a game and you take what he can provide with the bat. We're going to do the same thing tomorrow with Anthony Rizzo. I think the Yankees do have pressure to score tomorrow, and Rizzo he had a nice at bat today. He drew a walk, and you just have to trust that he knows what he's doing at the plate. And that's going to take pressure off some of our superstars to when they do strike, it matters. You don't want our guys hitting homers down 3-0 because we're losing. And it's a game we frankly at that point should have lost. We want guys to help out when it matters in the first through fifth inning. That way we can actually relax. So I'm going with Anthony Rizzo. Totally understand the defense. If he was playing well defensively or was even average defensively over there, then this would be an easy conversation. We probably wouldn't even have brought it up. But clearly, certain players at first base have clear issues. One can't play defense at all, but he's hitting right now. The other, we don't know if he's going to hit because he hasn't played in Cabrera, but we know he can be athletic at first base. And then obviously Birdie today, you saw he made a few poor mistakes at first and then he didn't hit. So it's between Cabrera and Rizzo. I'm going with the guy who is hitting.
It's frustrating to me because I thought Birdie played pretty well, and then he had a couple of those eat him up, and that was really the frustrating thing. Cabrera had a double, by the way, in that first game against the Royals, and I'm pretty sure he played the second one, and then they went with Birdie. Oh, no, they went with Birdie in the second game, and I don't think we saw Cabrera again.
I don't remember seeing Cabrera more than once, so...
Yeah, he struck out 3 times, but he had a double. And then he played in game 3 against Kansas City. He went 0 for 1 with 3 walks.
Oh, yeah, because you were very happy about his at-bats.
Yes,
but
loved
again,
his at-bats.
Walking is good, but in my opinion, I know... walking, you're at first base. That's a good thing. That's the goal. Get on base and let somebody else do the job. You didn't fail. That is true. But the Yankees also need hitting, right? We've done a lot of walking this series. They also need to hit. So Rizzo can walk. He showed that to you today, but he can also hit. So I'm going with him. And you just have to hope to God that he's not making some of the mistakes he made today, because it looked like he hadn't played first base. That's actually what it looked like. He couldn't bend down at first. I mean, obviously this is latter half of his career. That's part of what comes with that process. But usually defense is like the last thing to go. He is the absolute opposite. I'm not sure what I'm looking at.
Yeah, it's not great. But the way he's swinging the bat and how they're going to have to win, tomorrow, I would imagine, they're just going to have to deal with it, and the thing I think is you can deal with almost everywhere on just all over the field, but I don't think that you can deal with a bad catcher. And Jose Trevino really showed us that he can come in maybe in a pinch hitting spot. So the opposite of what happened today, but the problem is he's just not. I don't care about his framing. I see it all the time. Oh, he's a great framer. Well, he's not that much better, if at all, better than Wells. So now I'm more focused on if a team that has as much speed on the base paths as the Guardians have, can you neutralize that run game? And if you can't, that's a bigger issue to me. And when I look at it, I don't think Jose Trevino can get one of these guys out. And very typical role, by the way. If Wells, all things considered, let's just say nothing changes about Austin Wells from this point to the end of the World Series, if we're lucky enough to get there, to which we should still. Yeah.
Austin Wells, at the very least, is a spectacular framer of the baseball. He is a spectacular blocker. You already saw that actually tonight. Okay. Phenomenal block behind the plate. If he does that, and he can also help control the running game, ton of winning catchers in the history of this game didn't really give out a huge offensive output, but they controlled what needed to be controlled about the game. We have to remember Austin Wells is still a catcher. Okay. There's a reason that when he was hitting 250, we were all freaking out, is because those numbers are considering that he is a catcher. Okay. He's a catcher. He's not a left fielder. He's not a right fielder. No, he's a catcher. Okay. So where I'm at with this is that if Austin Wells does what he's really been doing all along, is he's essentially this defensive specialist right now. I'm good with that. I am. Just slide him way down the order and essentially relinquish him from a strong role in this offense. Give someone else that pressure. Put the pressure on Jazz Chisholm, whose offense is his job. That is the key component of his job, getting on base, running the bases correctly, and scoring. Okay? So I'm starting Austin Wells. I don't even think it's a question. And I wanted to make sure I brought this comment up because this needs to be said. The Yankees would have to lose 4 of 5 games to go home. Yeah. And at this point, 3 of 4. Is that correct?
Yes.
You would have to lose 3 of the 4 games you play.
It's possible, but
absolutely possible. The Yankees have done it a multitude of times. Absolutely. But Garrett Cole should be right. He's also pitching at home. The next time Garrett Cole pitches, it's at home, correct? At game 6 is when he's slated. Because I remember it was at game 2 and game 6, I believe, was written down for me.
Yeah. So Rodon will pitch game 5. He will. And then Cole will pitch game 6. And I don't even know what they do for game 7. I think it is a joint effort. I think you're looking at, well, if Cortez is on this team, if he's called up like I think he's going to this roster with the emergency designation, I think he'll pitch. I don't think he'll start. I think there'll be an opener. It will probably be Clark Schmidt opening. Okay. You'll have him pitch 3 innings. Then you would probably go with like Luis Heel, and Stroman might pitch an inning, and Cortez would be in there. It would be an all hands on deck. And I think at the end of the day, if it was a really close game late in the game, and say, Weaver's already out of the game or whatever, it goes to extra innings, I think Garrett Cole comes in to try and end to send them the World Series. I think that would be, they would ride it. They would leave it all on the line, kind of like what they did with Sabathia a while back. I think that's what they would do because it's 1 inning, right? I understand.
So we've got game 2 and game 6. The way we have to see it, game 6, foreshadowing that far, we hate to do that because game 4 is tomorrow, right? Exactly. We hate to do that. But the point here, if you did get to a game 7, we wouldn't have any momentum. I'm just here to tell you guys right now, looking at it from that perspective of we have to win this many games within this many games, right? It's true technically, but once you get to that game 7, it's not going to be treated like you won back-to-back games to take all momentum, and now we get game 7 at Yankee Stadium. No, it's going to be a ton of pressure. So I would say we need to remember we are playing the Cleveland Guardians, okay? This is a good team, not a great team, right? Some people have said this Yankees team isn't this overly impressive elite baseball club. And we've said, fine, sure, absolutely okay by us for you to have that opinion. A team that has flaws. They have flaws at manager. They have flaws somewhere in their bullpen. Obviously with Clay Holmes, you saw it today, who's otherwise pitched well this postseason. But there are flaws. We just have to have less of them in game 4 than the other team. The other team is burnt out. They have used a lot, not just in game 3, in game 2 as well. They're burning bullpen quickly. And at some point or another, I talked about it after game 2's win, you are going to notice that they're burning through that bullpen. And you're also going to see that manager from Cleveland who in a hurry comes out of his bullpen. He comes out to his bullpen in a hurry. He loves to. And I thought it was a good strategy, but that strategy does catch up with you. It's a strategy Aaron Boone's deployed over the years. It's part of the reason why at the end of every postseason we say, man, why is Aroldis Chapman so gassed? Man, why is Zach Britton so gassed? Dellin Betances, he never threw this way. Why is he so gassed? Because that is the way we used to play. At some point or another, at the end of this series, it's going to matter. I believe that. I think it's going to help this Yankees offense punch through this glass ceiling we have over our head to essentially go win a pennant.
And I will say, there was a win today, and it was getting after Clase and getting in his head. This is his first appearance of the entire series, game 3, at home. He has the golden opportunity to win that game. And if he does 3-1, like I understand he's very excited. They won the game and everything. Everybody should be on Cleveland, but that's going to linger. And I think that's going to pay negative dividends on his side. I think it's going to pay out for the Yankees. I really do, because I don't think he's been that great in this postseason. I'm just going to say it right now. I haven't been impressed with Clase this postseason. I have not. He has a 9 ERA, Gary. He is just not pitching on the level that we were expecting him to. Gave up 2 home runs in this one. Gave up a home run, I believe, in the Tigers series. This is his first blown save, but he's really not looked great. And so I do think that matters. We're going to find out, but I think the Yankees win tomorrow, and I think they're going to win by way of just beating them over the head with the offense. I really do. I think Gavin Williams, I understand they really don't have much of a choice, but Gavin Williams is going to get absolutely plowed tomorrow by this offense.
In theory, that's who you have to go beat. If you see Gavin Williams, he's a good pitcher. He's definitely not great by any stretch of the imagination. You can get shut down by anybody. I mean, we've shown up and played the Chicago White Sox this year, and you're wondering, where did our offense go? Why can't we score? Right? Hitting is the hardest thing to do in sports. There's no question about that. But once you're locked into a tight series, there are no excuses. You come out, you're going to have to execute. There's going to be another situation in tomorrow night's game where there's a man on 3rd and 2nd, and we're going to have to score more than 1 run. We're going to have to not get picked off. We're going to have to cash in some of those situations and not wait for 3-run homers or 2-run homers against some of the game's best arms. Cleveland has an advantage in this series, and it is their bullpen. They have a very good bullpen. But the format of this series, 2-3-2, forces both of these teams to play back-to-back-to-back days. And when you pitch, and I see it in the chat, even 18 pitches. 18 pitches is enough work. If you can go another day, you can do it. Can you go 3 days in a row? That's the question. Can you go 4 days in a row? That's the question. If you're used 5 or 6 times in a series, does it have any impact on how you play at the end of the series? In my opinion, it does. You saw with Clase, a lot of people said, oh, he's just been awful this postseason. He's been getting hit. Remember, back to the last series, he was pitching 6 or 7 outs. They were trying to pitch him multiple innings, something he wasn't doing all year, and they got to him. They show up this series, maybe that confidence was shot a little bit, and it made him pay. So, yes, 18 pitches of work isn't a lot, but when you touch the mound, it's a lot more work to do that than to do nothing.
I absolutely agree. And with John here, he pitches overconfident because he has 100 miles an hour, but he's leaving meatballs over the plate. I kind of get what he's saying, and I mean, I'll take it back to the last time, when the Yankees were playing the Guardians in Cleveland. And we talked about that at bat on this show. And we talked about how impressed we were with Volpe, that huge hit off of Clase. And that's kind of where I'm at, is when you're throwing 100 miles an hour, it doesn't take a hell of a whole lot. Just get the bat on the ball. And that's what happened with Judge. This guy swings like crazy. And, if he's going to get a hold of one, well, it's going to go over the wall. And I think that's what you see. So there's a blessing and a curse to being able to throw that hard. And I do agree with that. Today, by the way, Matthew Boyd had 9 swing and misses. Clark Schmidt only had 5 whiffs. Okay. Understand, Rodon was in the 20s. So there hasn't been a ton of those like dominant performances here.
Oh, that was like Rodon. A Zach Wheeler performance. Incredible. Yeah.
Rodon really has been the best pitcher that we've seen on a mound this series. Yep. And so we're going to find out, because Luis Gil, I could see it going one way. I could see it going in the other. I have a feeling Gil's going to come out there. He's going to say, basically, I was the ace when Garrett Cole was out. You relied on me. He didn't falter then. Why would he falter now? I think he's going to give him 6 strong. And I think the Yankees are going to win this game by way of the offense, but I think Heel's going to pitch well. And I think we see Stroman and we might see Cortez pitch tomorrow. I do think Cortez is going to be added to the roster, though. That's my prediction. I don't know if you agree on that, but I think it is going to be Cortez.
Okay. I can't even say, I don't know who else they would rely on, because you have to remember, this has to be a veteran presence, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a matter of, do you think this guy can perform at this level? The Yankees tend in these situations to rely on veteran players, right? Luis Heel is about as young as it gets. He's the rookie. He's the rookie in this situation. But there's a reason that Marcus Stroman, we're even thinking about him touching a mound tomorrow. It's because of his veteran presence. He's been there. He's done this before. He's not going to go out there and shake the way we saw the dude from Cleveland do in game 1 and 2. No, it's not going to happen, right? He knows the moment. He understands the moment. He's not going to shy away from it. I'd be very happy if it worked out for Marcus Stroman. But obviously, like I told you before, we need to get in that situation. We just do. And also a huge question mark for Luis Heel. And this is the question mark. I don't think stuff is going to be a problem at all. Okay. This start tomorrow reminds me actually a lot of Carlos Rodon's first start in the postseason in the division series, where he came out throwing 100 miles an hour and everyone said, oh my gosh, this is no hitter Carlos Rodon. He's fresh. Wow, he's firing. Right at the beginning of the season, you saw Luis Heel doing this, seeing 101, 100 miles an hour, everyone talking about the stuff. But what did you see when he was excellent? He dialed that back. Exactly what you saw out of Carlos Rodon. He dialed it back, and what you saw is better execution. The moment can't be too big for Luis Heel. I need to see command. I need to see him dial back the reins. He needs to make sure this game's not too big for him.
No, I agree. And, you know, we talked about it, kind of dialing back the fastball, using the slider. He's had a lot of success with that. Poor Jonathan. That's
a tough day. We're really sorry about that. We're dealing with enough here, and you had to go ahead and be a Saints fan. Yeah,
I just looked at it. It's not ideal. 26-3. And it's the former coach too. And I knew the Broncos are going to win because Sean Payton is honestly the pettiest dude alive. So I was like, this is going to keep getting run up. So I'm sorry, Jonathan. That really sucks. Appreciate the 5 though.
Yeah,
we definitely appreciate that. To wrap this up, if you're new here, be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. If you're on Twitter, go ahead, check us out on YouTube. We do this every single postseason game. Maybe we'll do it every single game because I love this format. It's fun. We're streamers at heart. But true. I am going to go with this movie here. So you're going to drop this in the comment section if you made it to this point in the video and you watched the full thing. It's directed by Mike Flanagan. It is a movie you've probably never heard of before, Hush. It is a psychological horror movie about a deaf woman who's being stalked by a psychotic killer in her secluded home.
I turned it on and I was terrified and turned it off. I remember this movie. It was on Netflix and I turned it right off.
It's amazing. It's so perfectly done. Kate Siegel's outstanding in it. And the reason I said Hush is because you got all these people running their mouths. I saw in the comments section, you got some Guardians fans in here. Welcome, by the way. But I see you. The big Christmas or whatever, Hush. So put that in the comments section because that's what the Yankees are going to be saying tomorrow to the Guardians. Hush. Hush. That's going to do it. So appreciate you guys. Be sure to like, subscribe, drop that comment, and we'll see you guys tomorrow night.
And like this video.